All right, what is going on, guys? Welcome to Cosmic Pilots. I am Tate, and today we're joined by two incredible guests, Ron Magid, ex-journalist, screenwriter, and co-founder of the Halloween Society, the legendary 1980s horror collective that celebrated and discussed monster masks and mask artistry, and Harrison Magid, indie filmmaker, editor, and director of the upcoming Halloween Society documentary, exploring the remarkable legacy Ron and Dante built together. Ron's story is remarkable. He began collecting Hollywood memorabilia at just 12, driven by a love of classic horror films. That passion led to experiment with monster makeup, though he soon discovered he had more talent for writing about monsters than making them. He co-created the All Hallows Eve companion for the Halloween Society, which caught the attention of horror legend Forrest J. Ackerman and earned him a column in Monsterland magazine. Ron later became special effects editor at American Cinematographer, where for over 2 decades he chronicled the artistry of visual, practical, and makeup effects, earning multiple award nominations. Joining him his son, Harrison Magid, a Los Angeles-based screenwriter, editor, and filmmaker. Before directing the Halloween Society and Masked, Harrison wrote and directed acclaimed short films including Nosebleed, Narcolepsy, aka Lost Dreams. He also served as production assistant at the Xanax Company as assistant editor on a documentary film. Harrison is a member of Foreshadow Productions with his closest friends, a filmmaker collective developing a major horror anthology set for the release of 2027. Ron, Harrison, how are you guys?
We are great, and we're happy to be with you, Tate.
Good. I'm happy to be here with you, too. Perfect.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Is there anything you'd like to add or share about yourself with our listeners?
I recently escaped from a mental institution, but otherwise, I don't know that there's anything. So if you hear sirens in the background, they may have caught up to me.
Oh, man.
A lot of me.
Right.
There.
Oh, yeah. And I did have brain surgery recently, so, and that may have cured my condition.
Oh, good. Well, that's good. That's good. So what does Halloween season look like for you guys these days?
I mean, we actually haven't decorated in years because
Really?
It's always been. Here's the thing: when we decorated, we'd always leave it out till like February, and our neighbors would be like, "What are you doing here? Like, come on!" So it's like it's so much effort and so much work to put everything out, and it's really time consuming, especially with like the really cool decorations we have. So we might put a few things out, maybe
For sure, we're doing that.
Yeah, we'll put a few things out, but we haven't really hardcore decorated in like honestly almost 10
probably
years.
10 years. Yeah, since he was a little kid, when he would happily help me put out all this stuff.
I know now I don't have the time because like I would do it. It's just like then I have to spend so much time cleaning up, and it's like my schedule's already packed as it is. I barely have time for anything.
Well, I think too with like the Halloween masks up and stuff, I think it's kind of like a year-round thing. You don't really ever stop celebrating either. So
yeah, I know exactly. So it always does feel like Halloween, even if we don't put it. It's like I think what matters is it feels like Halloween to us. Like our other neighbors decorate like they're doing the job. It's
right.
They're not missing anything by us.
We're Monster Central 24/7.
Yeah.
365 days.
And the irony is, like, probably the craziest house on the inside, but the most normal on the outside.
That's funny. That's too funny.
Except for the skeleton chairs.
Oh yeah, that is true. There's some skeleton chairs. My friends have a Halloween decoration. They put out like a skeleton and they put a cigarette in its mouth.
Oh my goodness.
So
that's hilarious.
I was like, I thought of that.
So do you guys both collect Halloween masks, or is it just you, Ron? Or
actually, Harrison has quite a collection of Halloween masks and amazing T-shirts and stuff. He's definitely a second generation monster kid.
That's awesome. That's so
the
cool.
masks that I have. I mean, besides like the masks, like the masks that I have are basically mostly just masks I've worn for Halloween or stuff that also you have. So technically, kind of. A lot of them are your masks, and but yeah, a lot of them are stuff I wore for Halloween as a kid, or used for short films and stuff. I used to make a bunch of like horror short films, and
that's awesome.
Yeah,
that's so cool.
And he also has he has a bunch of masks from some of his favorite franchises, like the Saw franchise and.
Yeah, I was making a series of like Saw short films when I was like 12. and I was like, I wanted the pig mask, and so I could, run around like grab my friends.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I think, yeah, being able to wear them is actually, it's so funny. Like the mask that you can wear, like in the masks you can display, like there's such a huge difference in like, I don't know. I was trying to explain that to my parents the other day. I'm like, you can't like, they're like, oh, you're going to wear that one for Halloween? I'm like, no, I can't wear that one. Like, you can't, like, there's no way I could even fit my head in that one. So
Yeah.
it just cracks me up, but awesome.
Yeah, we all have to have those conversations with our parents. We'll never have to have that conversation with them.
Yeah, well, that's good.
You go there.
Awesome. So, Harrison, what drew you into this, like, this story of your dad's and, this creative legacy you got going
Yeah,
on?
I mean, basically, like, it's doing this documentary has kind of felt like discovering a part of my family history, because I've known all these people, kind of whether in passing or whether they're really close, like, my whole life, and going to conventions like Monsterpalooza, I've run into these people, and I've heard stories from you, and I've heard like secondhand stories, and it's all just kind of been a lot of scattered information. And it's like I've seen these masks and everything, grew up around these houses, and now I'm finding out like why they're there. So yeah, the whole thing has been just like really getting getting to know you better, and just my family history, and that's kind of how the approach that I've been taking with it. Yeah,
And he didn't run streaming.
not yet. I don't think I know.
Yeah, that's right.
A few things I should probably find out.
That's right. Well, they're all most of them are in the book, which, by the way, I wrote for him because
That's
I figured
awesome.
in a million years we'd never get around to discussing. The conversations you have with your parents. They're usually not about stuff like this. So
Right.
I put it down in writing so we could see it, and then I wanted to put the magazines in there as well because they're so rare.
Mhm.
There's so much information that I think otherwise would be lost to history because we interviewed so many of the mask makers at the time, that were that are no longer with us. And whether the interviews themselves appeared in the magazines or not, there's a lot of information that we got from, directly from Dave Smith or from Henry Alvarez or Don Post Jr. And so thankfully still with us. I didn't mean to include him among the past. And then but Ed Edmonds, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, we really tried to document the field. I mean, it wasn't a conscious effort to say, oh, we're doing something important. We had no idea we were doing anything important whatsoever. We just thought we were having fun and talking to people whose work we just admired so much. And there was nobody else doing it
Right.
at that point. So, we're just, I guess Dante and I were just in the right place at the right time in the right frame of crazy mind.
Yeah.
You
That's
know,
so cool. That's so cool. So did you so cuz in the book you kind of mentioned there was another sort of like magazine that was kind of similar that you guys weren't super crazy about, so you guys that's kind of what prompted you to make your own thing. Is that kind of
yes, it was called the MCC for Mass Collectors Club. It was basically Dante subscribed to it. It was when he got the what we hoped was going to be like a magazine. It was basically, I think, a two-sided, kind of Xerox thing. So like, imagine one page in our magazine, uh, and uh, and so it was a valiant effort. But we just went. I know we can do more,
yeah.
and so I didn't imagine that we would do that much more. Like our magazines were like between 30 and 50 pages long, which is insane.
Wow.
Dante laid them out. He typed everything into columns because there were no computers. He Xeroxed everything. In the original, uh, uh, issues of the All Hallows Eve companion were basically perfect bound, which means he glued them together by hand. I mean, these were like handmade works of art. He would tip in and he would tip in color photographs. This is before there was color Xerox. When we finally got color Xerox, we were able to use that as well. So we used whatever tools were available, and then we snail mailed them to our members. And so that's kind of the history of every fanzine, prior to like the 90s
That
or
is
the early
crazy.
2000s. Yeah.
Wow. So what was kind of the cost to join that? Was there a cost on that, or was it kind of like a
Yes, I think it was $20 a year, which we immediately lost money on because we hadn't calculated the cost of Xeroxing these massive magazines.
yeah.
I think we originally thought we'd do something that was more like 10 pages or something like that. Um, but it quickly grew into, people just couldn't stop sending us cool things to publish about, so
Yeah.
so that was kind of the impetus, and it's kind of amazing that it kept going as long as it did, because it was really difficult to find the time to do this stuff in amidst all the other things we were doing.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So as far as like dividing the work, was it kind of Dante kind of just put everything together and then you kind of just typed everything up, or not really, I guess typing, I guess kind of writing everything up, or
Because I was starting on my journalistic career pretty early on into the publishing. I was already doing advertising, copywriting, and stuff like that. So many times Dante would have to corner me and get me to work on the magazine, and a lot of the stuff we wrote together, and in those early issues, and so it was. So I have to say he was the driving force behind everything. And I don't want to say I just came along for the ride, because it turned out to be eventually a two-way street, but a lot of it was his initial enthusiasm that carried the day.
that's so cool. That's awesome. And as far as like starting out, was it? He was kind of more into the mask, because I know you started kind of like on makeup and different stuff like that. So as far as like getting into like the mask aspect of everything, was that kind of he already kind of was super into it and kind of just asked you if that would be something that you'd be into getting into also, or how did you really get into?
Well, let's go back to like the first issue of Famous Monsters I ever saw, where the ads for the Don Post masks were on the back, or inside. I can't remember which at this point. But in any case, I literally as a kid filled out the form, ordered every mask, every pair of hands, etc. And then, of course, never had the money to buy any of it. So I just defaced my issue of Famous Monsters for no
Writing
apparent
all over
reason,
it.
just out of some sort of unfulfilled wish fulfillment.
Yeah.
And so when I walked into Dante's mask room, which was literally a room off the pool, in his parents' house, I think it had been used as a changing room for the pool, but he had installed shelves, and it was just like, I don't know if you know the movie Flesh and Fantasy, but there's it's a Universal film where there's one segment that takes place in a mask shop, and it looked like that. It's just
Wow.
amazing. And he had probably almost every mask you could imagine at that time that had been made. He was really a completist. He had Cesare masks. He had distortions pieces. He had obviously all the Don posts. A lot of not just the Universal monsters, but lots of other Don posts. He had the Great Goblin, and just amazing stuff. It was incredible to walk into that room, and I was like, boy, have I been missing this stuff my whole life.
Yeah, that's so cool. That's so cool. I can't even imagine, like, masks back then aren't made like masks are today. Like the same appreciation isn't there, which is super sad because a lot of it's so funny. I just actually picked up a Don Post Frankenstein mask, and it's been being worked on for like the past couple months because I got it in like such rough condition. But I got a picture the other day, and it was like they sent a picture of it, and it was all foam filled and looked all good. So it's like a lot of the masks that were so appreciated aren't. It's hard to find them in like that immaculate shape in today's day. So,
Yeah.
If
but
Dante hadn't phoned most of mine, they probably wouldn't be around. I found lugging. Harrison would help me take when we were first pitching the idea of doing the book and everything. We went to some monster paloozas, and we would we would literally take all the masks, and I'm like, at a certain point, I'm like, these are really falling apart. If I'm not careful, I can't just take them anymore. I mean, the last time I handled them, they were supple.
Wow.
When they've been on a shelf, mostly on a shelf, except for when we moved from one house to another or whatever. So, so it's so even if you take the best care of them, and I'd like to think I have, aside from keeping them in bags, I can't bear to do.
Yep.
I just don't want them to look like victims of some sort of homicidal strangler or something. But it just boggles my mind how, I mean, I look in the mirror and I know I'm aging, but I didn't think my masks were.
Right. That's too funny. That's too funny. I know reading some of the stories I was cracking up reading some of the stories, like, before the Halloween Society, your adventures as a kid, trying to sell like the Planet of the Apes, like the prosthetics, and that was cracking me up. I was telling my family about that. I'm like,
I don't, yeah. And, I don't know if you recognize the name, but I was buying a lot of that stuff through Steve Neal.
Oh, okay.
One of those guys who's now, kind of famous for having his own podcasts and stuff like that. He was a terrific makeup artist back in the day. And I think he's kind of semi-retired now, but anyway, yeah, so I had, and I just wish to God I'd kept some of these things.
Yeah.
I had some of his early masks and stuff, which were really creative. And then I had a lot of his prosthetics and stuff that I used to turn my friends into monsters.
So cool.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun until I realized, I mean, I really thought I was going to be a makeup artist. And then I realized I had no talent. I tried sculpting a mask once. It turned out pretty badly. I think there's a picture of it in the book. And I just had no ability. What I didn't realize was I was preparing myself for a career writing about people who did this kind of work because I knew how to do it, even though I couldn't do it myself. I'm like one of those guys who, can't do it themselves, but can teach.
Right.
I think I've got that aphorism backwards, but anyway, you get the idea. So, so it was like, I could talk to someone like Rick Baker and he'd go, so, we'd be talking about a movie and he'd go, so I go, how would you do this? How many pieces? Go, like, it'd be a 2-piece appliance. I'd apply it like this. I'd put the spirit gum on one side and then the other. And then, and at a certain point he'd go, do you know what I'm talking about? I go, yeah, keep going. So, do you know what the difference is between flexible and non-flexible collodion? Yes, I do. And Lon Chaney did not put it in his eye for Road to Mandalay. That was a glass eye for anyone who's still paying attention at home. Don't put collodion in your eye.
Jeez. That's too funny. Actually, that conversation that you had with him reminds me of because I worked for Distortions here in Greeley.
Oh, how
and
cool.
That conversation reminds me of any time that I'd come into work and Ed would explain something to me. I'm like, I'm trying to understand it, but it all makes so much sense to like somebody, that does it so much and so often, like Rick Baker or, Ed or Don Post Jr. It's like anytime they explain something, it sounds so natural to them. And then like somebody that, isn't around it every day, it's like, a little bit harder to understand or harder to pick up, but that stuff is also cool to me. So
even after doing this documentary for a while, like a lot of the, kind of the technical jargon is still kind of, going over my head. But I understand most of it, I think, I would hope. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff that like people talk about in interviews and I'm like, wow, I need to figure out what this means.
Yeah, and I'm sure it's tricky to piece together like, where I'm sure you have a ton of stuff compiled, like interviews and stuff, and I'm sure piecing it together is also like pretty tricky,
Okay, that's been what's been taking the most the longest with this process is because we have a lot of the interviews. There's still a few people we're trying to get, but it's really because each interview is 90 minutes to 2 hours, and some are even longer. And we've interviewed a couple people multiple times, so there's hours and tens of hours of footage, and
we're not done yet.
We're not done yet. We're probably gonna have at least a couple hundred hours of footage by the time we're done. And
oh man,
setting the original release date for Halloween 2025 was, kind of
Wildly ambitious.
Wildly ambitious, which is kind of the root problem with everything I do, which is it's always this wildly ambitious thing that I'm like, yeah, I can do this by this point. But unfortunately, no. It's in 3 days. Definitely not.
Hey, I was thinking we might follow the outline of the book or whatever, but it really isn't. It doesn't lend itself to that. I mean, it has to be something completely different, which is neat. I mean, otherwise it would make one or the other irrelevant. But you'll be able to hear the firsthand experiences of all these mask maniacs that and mask makers and fans that we've been around our entire lives.
Yeah. So is there a goal in sight? Are you guys thinking like maybe like next year or the next year or two, or kind of just to be announced?
TBD for now.
Yep.
We don't want to set any more release dates until we know.
That totally makes sense.
I'm hoping it won't take longer
the rest of our lives.
Longer, but yeah, there's a lot of footage, and it's really been trying, because it's kind of a kill your darling situation, because it's like there's so much and so many of these interviews, like a lot of them, they're just like it's wall to wall, just great and interesting stories, and I'm like, what do I cut from this, and also like where does this fit in, and how does this connect to this other thing somebody else said, and it's just keeping track of all this information has been it's been a lot, but definitely I always say, like, the with everything I do, if the goal isn't to be better than the last thing, it should be more ambitious. And this is definitely more ambitious. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. So is there anything like rewarding or like surprising that you've come across, going through all the old, like any old footage or old pictures or anything like that?
Yeah. For him or for
either of you.
Well, I mean, it's been just a wonderful trip down memory lane. We went and visited with the Tharps recently, and I hadn't seen them in probably 20 years. Life, you'll find this out, Tate, as you get older. Life pulls you in different directions than you think you're going to go. And sometimes you lose touch with people, at least I did, that were really, really important. And so for me, it's been a labor of love to write the books, to get the feedback, to get and then to be able to go and people make time. Not everybody necessarily, after all this time, would necessarily want to be, commemorated in a documentary about the Halloween Society. They had no choice with the book because I wrote it. It's not like they were consulted, except on occasion when I did try to get people to read my manuscript so it would be accurate. Some did and some didn't. I'm sure you've seen William's post.
Oh yeah. Yep, I saw that.
So anyway, let the buyer beware, but he can write his own version in the margins of mine. For anyone who's lucky enough to meet him. But anyway, so it's really, there's so much shared history with these people that when we talk, there's just a lot of material that just comes up, things I've forgotten, things I wish I could have forgotten, and it's just, and I'm really thrilled for my son and for people who are, your age, his age, the guys who may come after us who like this sort of thing, because, there's all these documentaries and books and so on about people who are great makeup artists. Howard Berger has a new one out coming any second, and, which looks fantastic. I haven't got my hands on it yet, but I'm sure it's awesome. But the point is, there's nobody who's been writing about masks, and and that whole thing, and what makes people want to create these things. And it was definitely a different impulse for us than, our goal initially was just to fill the holes that Don Post left, So it's like we did our Mr. Hyde because he had done this. Well, he did twice this great Mr. Hyde based on Boris Karloff's, Abbott and Costello Meet Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, which is a great makeup, but it isn't the classic, 31 makeup that we did. And I still want to do a John Barrymore at some point. Um, but so we were just so that was kind of the impetus, was just to do that. And the reason we did it is because we were very, very opinionated. I don't know if you've read how much you've gotten into the magazines themselves, but we had a column in every issue called the best and worst masks.
Yep.
And many people's masks ended up on the worst list. And I apologize to all of them, because we didn't know we really didn't understand what went into it, And so when people wrote us back and said, apoplectically, "How dare you?" That's when I basically turned to Dante and said, "I think we need to make our own masks, and then at least we can, we can speak
shit talk and
and
then back it up."
Yeah, and I'll tell you something that I learned. Don't ask me to tell you which ones, because all the Halloween Society masks are like my kids. Fortunately, I only have one, so I don't have to pick a favorite. But they're all my favorites.
Uh-huh.
But the fact is, they're variable. Some were better than others, and some are not as good as others. Interestingly, some of the ones that I would have considered failures are some of the most popular ones, and vice versa. So it's like anything. You can't tell which cream is going to rise to the top until time has passed and people have a chance to really evaluate it.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. No, that would be if all of them are so unique in their own way. I don't know if I could pick a favorite either. I think just from looking behind you guys, I don't even know. They're all so cool in their own way. So the hide mask. So that was the first mask. What was there a reason that I think you kind of mentioned the reason you kind of made that one the first mask. Is there a specific reason that one happened to be the first one?
Yes, because we were always disappointed that Don Post didn't do it. That's such a great movie. If any of you haven't seen it out there, you need to watch it immediately. It's just an amazing film directed by Ruben Mamoulian, and it's so ahead of its time in so many ways. And Frederick March's performance, the first monster to ever win an Academy Award, and it was like 50, 60 years later before I think Linda Blair was nominated or whatever, and then finally Anthony Hopkins won for Hannibal Lecter. But that's the history of horror films is there's and the Academy Awards and other awards shows are that people never appreciated. They years ago I was on the set of Village of the Damned with John Carpenter, and he said horror has been ghettoized, and literally that's literally true. It was until recently. I mean, now we're living in a golden age where it looks like Sinners is going to get nominated for an Academy Award. Maybe Del Toro's Frankenstein, which I haven't seen yet.
I have,
and in other films. So but it's just there's just spectacular work being done.
I agree. I think it's definitely going uphill. I think for a moment there, it was getting to the point where almost every single horror movie was like predictable, and now you're seeing like every horror movie that you see is like slowly, each kind of has a different outcome, or stuff isn't as predictable as it used to be, and I think that's good, because I think during the the 70s and 80s, it was everything was so unique in their own way. There was, I don't know. I just think it's cool to see that rise again. So,
well, strap in, because when you see Harrison's films, it's going to be a shock.
That's right. That's right.
What we're hoping for is like we're all me and my friends, in Four Shadows Productions, we're really trying to do something that is that people hopefully haven't seen before, and to really kind of push the boundaries of what we can do on a budget and just what we can do in general, and just kind of we're always calling each other up and being like, how crazy would it be if we did this? Like, can we pull this thing off? And how do you feel about it if we did this? Because we're always like, we're each writing, basically with this anthology film, each of us is writing and directing our own part of it. But there is a through line, and all of these stories do connect in some way. So right now, even though we're still in the writing stage, and we're going to have first drafts done by the end of the year, be in pre-production next year. We're still, we're focusing on writing it, and priority number one is telling the stories that we want to tell. But we also are conscious of how, one story fits into the themes of another, and what things come back, because we want to feel like we don't necessarily want you to be conscious of the fact that it's an anthology film. Like, we want it to feel like one whole film, and I think that's what a lot of anthologies are missing, is a sense of cohesion. So that's what we really want to bring to it.
That's exciting. That's exciting. I'm sure that's fun. That's fun. That process of doing that has been really fun. So I'm definitely looking forward to checking that out when it
It's
comes
a
out.
wild imagination, I'm telling you.
There's some stuff in here I was like, if we weren't funding it ourselves, no one would let us do this.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So
Wow, that's
I'm
cool.
a very proud papa.
I'm sure you should be. That's awesome. I mean,
I've gotten some weird looks after saying, like, I just burst out an idea, like, and they've been like, why would you do that? And I'm like,
yeah, I mean, you're so young still, and you have some short films under your belt, so it's like it's cool to do all that, while you're still so young too. So
yeah, no.
you'll be like 40, and you'll have all these films out, and
Hopefully, if
that'll
I'm
be-
lucky enough to keep making them by then, I might have to find another career path. Fingers crossed, like,
hopefully not. Hopefully not.
Yeah,
Hopefully
Well, that's
not.
why one of the reasons I was encouraging him to make a documentary, because that's the one thing that AI can't do.
Right.
You need, I mean, I guess you could fake the real people, but the point is you want to see the real people and hear the real stories from the real horse's mouth, for lack of a better term, and that can't, at least at this point in our lives, can't be faked. By the way, is that a Magus mask in the back, or Migas?
So this one right here.
No, that the one above your shoulder. It looked like, with your head blocking most of it. I thought it was the Migas mask.
This one's it's Distortions Andromeda. It's part of the Resurrection line. So.
I recognize that one.
Yep.
But the one to the, I guess to the left of it.
To the left.
Yeah.
Which one are you pointing at?
This is a Shockwave, Death Studio Shockwave.
That's what it looked with your head blocking most of it. It looked like the Migas mask that was, and that was the first mask I ever saw that Dante was wearing. That's when I met Dante at a convention back in the 80s. He was wearing that mask. And
that's awesome. That's crazy.
He had a button that said "Man of 100 Faces."
That's crazy.
And he said he hoped to add an extra zero in his lifetime. But, at some prompting from me, I think he started refining the search a little bit.
That's too funny. Yeah, that I love that mask back there. That's my favorite. And then I just got that mask right there. It's this Tor mask.
So awesome. What is that?
What's that?
That's the Tor Johnson.
Yeah, it's
that's so wonderful.
Oh, I love it. I did like a custom paint job on it.
Oh, so nice.
That's awesome. Now, is that a vintage Mad Doctor over there?
Yep, it's the Mad Doctor. So part of those calendar 90s calendar masks that they did. So
thankfully they did those. That's amazing. And I love your Halloween 3 pumpkin.
Thank you. Yeah, actually, one of my friends, he did like the day glow paint on it, like like Don Post used to do. But before the Tharps retired, they did a few of them like that. But I got that one a couple months ago.
I'll tell you something interesting about that mask if you want to hear it.
Yeah.
Which is, those are not necessarily yours, but the original Don Post ones were the ones that you only saw in the mask factory. Tom Berman made his own version of the pumpkin mask, and I had it once, and I gave it to Forey, and God knows what happened to it, because in those days, we were going over to Forey's all the time, and I'm like, I'm running out of space, and I'll get another one of these days. And I'll tell you something really interesting. The Berman one had the shamrock sculpted into the back of the mask, so that's how you can always tell if you are ever lucky enough to find one. I'm still, I'm wanting to slip my wrists now thinking about the fact that it was in my hands, and I don't even have one of the production ones.
That's crazy.
And Tom Berman and Ellis Berman, Sonny Berman, and then Barney and Rob Berman, they're like my heroes. I mean, the Bermans in particular, along with John Chambers, just shaped my life. in so many profound and you know ways that you can't imagine, because you're a post. Everyone watching this is a post Star Wars person, but before there was Star Wars, if you think about it, there was Planet of the Apes, 2001, Logan's Run to just prior to Star Wars, and then in between were all these not very good movies that the Bermans mostly worked on for Sandy Howard and people like that, like The Devil's Reign, and which is John Travolta's first film, and Gargoyles, the TV movie, and just Island of Dr. Moreau, all this stuff that when I was a kid, I was starved. I mean, there literally was, like, the Night Stalker show was on for one damn season, and then it was over. There was $6 Million Man. Planet of the Apes TV series was also on for one damn season. Not that anybody missed it, but the fact is, we were just desperate. And now you can see all this stuff. First of all, it's all preserved, at least for the time being, and please do what my son does and collect real media, because stuff is disappearing from streaming right and left.
Yeah.
And there is going to be a time where the only people who are going to have access to certain things are the ones who've been able to get the actual, hardcore legacy media stuff. And he's devout about that sort of thing. He just picked up a bunch of.
I just got the 4K Blu-ray of Sorcerer. Kind of got myself that as an early birthday present.
Oh, nice! That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, media is so cool. I love media, like real media. I'm a big fan of Evil Dead, so I have like all the different versions of Evil Dead they've released throughout the years. It's crazy. Like I have I think probably 25 to 30 copies of just Evil Dead.
Whoa!
I have a friend. She picks up every time she sees a DVD or a Blu-ray of Amelie for sale somewhere. She goes thrifting a lot. She picks it up, so she has I don't know how many copies she has of Amelie, but probably
that's crazy. That's crazy. But I heard too through Lauren Spears' podcast that you guys did actually last week. Was it last week that you guys went and saw Army of Darkness? Was it a date that you went on?
Yeah, it was my first date.
It's the reason I exist.
Exactly. Yeah.
I owe my existence to Sam Raimi, and I owe my film career to Sam Raimi also.
You gotta tell him that sometime, if you meet him in person.
I did meet him, and I didn't tell him that. I just was panicking. I was like, oh my God.
That's funny.
That was really cool. We were at a Monster Palooza, and he just happened to walk out with his brother Ted. From whatever the green room version of Monster Palooza is, which is, probably not a green room at all. It's probably not even a blue room. But anyway, and so Harris is like, oh my God, it's them. And I go, let me handle this. I walked up. I go, Sam, you don't remember me, but I was on the set of Spider-Man 1. And we started talking and so on. And then immediately, as soon as I'm like, this is my son, Harrison, who actually is making movies as opposed to writing about them. And he took it away from there. He's
probably when I was 16 or 17, and I was I remember he told me, he's like, take as many English literature and history classes as you can. And I've been trying to follow that advice.
That's so cool. Sam's so nice. Sam and Bruce and Ted and all them. I've been thankful enough to meet all them. So they actually did an event at the Stanley Hotel, not too far from where I'm at, and it was Bruce Fest. So it was all Bruce was there, and then they did Evil Dead. They showed some of Bruce's work and stuff like that. So it was pretty cool. But yeah, Sam was the last one I met last year. So that was pretty cool. That's cool though. That's awesome.
He's awesome, and he's still making great movies.
He is. And he has some stuff coming out soon. So looking forward to that. But oh man, so much fun stuff coming out. I'm excited.
Yeah, it's looking good for horror.
Yeah,
it is. It is, honestly. Is there anything that you're excited for that's on the way?
I mean, I just saw Frankenstein. I liked it a lot, and
Good, good.
um, yeah, I'm trying to think what else is coming out later this year. I'm really excited for the next 28 Years Later movie. That's what I'm really excited for because
Yeah, yeah.
that 28 Years Later blew me away. That was an amazing movie, and I'm really excited to see how this new trilogy progresses, especially because Nia DaCosta is doing it. I really enjoyed her Candyman movie. Um, and yeah, I'm trying to think, and obviously Send Help, the Sam Raimi movie. I'm really excited for. Um,
There's a bunch of
There's a ton of
good
them
stuff.
coming out.
yeah,
And it seems like there's like I don't know why they're not coming out for Halloween, but they're going to come out like towards the end of the year. Just a ton of stuff,
yeah.
which would, and then into early next year as well. It looks, you know, it's going to be definitely a blood drenched Christmas.
Yeah, it'll be exciting. It'll be exciting. I'm excited. The special effects in these movies too are crazy. Like I feel like they just keep getting crazier. Like, you watch a movie and you're like, "Oh, they can't top that." And then you watch another one and it's like 10 times better. It's crazy. So,
Yeah.
oh
And what's
man.
cool about my son is he is really dedicated to doing everything practically that he possibly can. I'm uh, I can't say I'm old school. I think it's new school to say that certain technologies I think are very useful. I mean, I point to the original Jurassic Park, which basically put me on the map as a journalist because um, literally someone picked up a rock and found me. Finally, a prehistoric rock, no doubt. And but the magic of that movie is all the Stan Winston stuff,
Yeah.
coupled with the digital effects and so on, kind of like Terminator 2 as well. And so, I love. So I'm more of a fan of getting there any way you can, as opposed to just specifically like the Damien Leone way, which I think is fantastic.
Yep.
His work
Yep.
is, his practical work is amazing.
It's insane.
Um, so yeah,
I mean, also the thing is like, Jurassic Park obviously is amazing, but like I think and especially because of especially because of what we can pull off on a budget, like I think there's just a tangible feeling that the audience gets subconsciously when you do something practically. And obviously, whatever budget we get for anything, our commitment is always going to be, practical first and foremost, and only use CG where absolutely necessary. And I think also with the budget that we have, if you're going to use CG, it would look like shit. So I think we would just rather. It's also just fun. It's just really fun doing that stuff and seeing that stuff. And there's also with the documentary, I have certain ideas for, I guess, a way to do some sort of like recreation of things. Like I still have to find the structure, and then once I know what scenes are going in there and what's going in, we're going to go out and film, I guess, recreations of these things, and kind of in keeping in line with, I guess, the spirit and the legacy of the Halloween Society.
Mm-hmm.
I want to do some things with masks that may or may not work, but the thing that if there's a high doubt about whether it may or may not work, do it. So that's always what I want to do. Yeah. So we'll see.
We'll see. Yeah. No, I'm looking forward to seeing what you're talking about.
I don't know if that instills confidence, but
That's too funny. That's awesome. So, Ron, you kind of mentioned your writing a little bit ago. Was there a particular film or moment that made you realize, like, this is what I want to do? And kind of, where did you realize, I guess, that you wanted to specifically, do just writing and stuff like that?
pretty early on in my life. I mean, I was writing, um, very mediocre short stories and things like that in elementary school. Uh, so um, there's a friend of mine that uh, I went to school with named Greg Ostrin, who's now a very successful playwright both here in Los Angeles and in New York. And we were kind of riffing off each other and coming up with ideas for things. And you know, and I can't remember what how we got started, but the original thing I did was uh, I created a character called Super Pencil,
Uh-huh.
and his and mostly I did drawings. I didn't do it as many as much writing about Super Pencil. But he had a villainous enemy named Count Compactula, who had everything inside his cape and could, like, manufacture anything in a spur of a moment. And of course, his arch nemesis was the pencil sharpener, who could easily cut him down to size. Right? Okay, I know now. I'm totally a geek. But anyway, this is like fourth or fifth grade, and so I started doing that very early on, and I don't know what makes. I honestly don't know where these creative impulses come from in the first place, except that I loved so many of the things I love now, especially like macaroni and cheese and hot dogs. Um,
That is
but
good.
just like that, universal horror films and and so on, and somehow it all just got kind of you know um, mashed together. And even though I doubt I'll have a patch on my son's whatever part of his body you wanted to think about uh, in terms of a career, um, you know, uh, that's what inspired me to write screenplays and stuff,
That's awesome.
and yeah, so it was just really, really, it's just been really neat, and it's been great to be able to. I can't I can't say inspire him, because he's inspired.
Yeah.
He's inspired. He's a bit touched, so he's inspired on his own. But
You inspire me.
but yeah. Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Anyway, he's but
You always
he's
encourage everything I do. So yeah, and you give me feedback on everything. So yeah, no, don't sell yourself short.
That's
it's
awesome.
fun to have a kid. I was afraid when Harrison was born that he would just be interested in football and sports and all the things that I personally don't care at all about. I have no idea what's going on in the sports world
Uh,
on any given day or any given week or any particular decade, unless I've seen it in a movie. Like, everything I know about baseball probably comes from The Natural, uh,
yeah.
and so I was terrified that would be my kid. He would go, and in fact, uh, not mask related, but Harrison and I went to our first basketball game together.
It's probably like 10 years ago now.
Yeah,
It was a Lakers game, and yeah, Kobe was supposed to play, but then he like sprained his ankle a few weeks before, so he was on the bench, and yeah,
and we were in the nosebleed suite seats. But literally, that's the first time I'd ever set foot in a basketball arena.
Wow. That's
And
crazy.
same with him. So it's like it's very unusual to have a 35 years difference between your first experiences of something.
Yeah, that's pretty special. Like, creating moments like that, that is super special. That's cool that you guys got to do that together. That's awesome. So, and I'm sure too, like, as you've been working kind of on this documentary, like, that's definitely, I'm sure, brought you guys closer together, kind of bouncing ideas off of each other and stuff like that.
yeah, definitely.
When he
Do you have
doesn't
any-
want to kill me,
What's that?
he said, when he doesn't want to kill me, it brings us closer together.
Do you have any favorite memories, I guess, so far, like the process of working on it? Is there anything that, like, really stands out as,
I mean, honestly, just I guess kind of just in general, just going out for the interviews and meeting these people or being able to talk to these people I already know more in depth, and kind of, like,
Yeah.
a lot of these people, like, we kind of just have to drive pretty far for, like, some of these people, it's pretty far, so, like, on the way
Right.
we'll play each other albums, and it's always really fun
Yeah, no one seems to live on our side of town.
yeah
Probably
What's up with that?
deliberately.
Paul Clemens, but
Yeah.
that's kind of it.
That's right.
Um,
Who sculpted many of our Halloween Society masks, and of course, famous as the star of The Beast Within, among many other things.
and also the star, or one of the stars of my short film Narcolepsy and upcoming projects. So yeah, he's definitely keeping Paul working.
That's awesome. That's awesome. What about you, Ron? Do you have any favorite or funny memories, or when you started the Halloween Society? Is there anything that really stands out to you?
Yeah, I mean, there's some crazy stories. I mentioned Paul Clemens and The Beast Within. Um, After The Beast Within wrapped, um, Paul Clemens and the director Philippe Mora brought me to 20th Century Fox, where they had literally laid everything out like on that was used in the movie, like on a field or something, in the back, somewhere in the back lot of the studio, and it was just all laid out like, you know, like essentially it was going to go in the dumpster. And so, Paul took some stuff and I took a bunch of stuff. And, you know, one of the things that Paul didn't have room for was his shredded body from The Beast Within. If you recall the movie, he's basically the son of a wild cicada and his mom. And he eventually turns into sort of a cicada monster. And he literally sheds his skin. And they find it later on up in a tree with his shredded pajamas and so on. And so I kept that body for years, and we used it for Halloween. And I lent it to Dante one year for his Halloween party, and he brought it back to me, or no, he gave it back to me, and I drove it home in my car. I was living at the time in Santa Monica,
Huh.
and in those days, I was living on the beach at 1313 Oceanfront Walk. And the parking was like half a mile away from where my house was. So I thought I'll just leave this body. I didn't want to have the police see me carrying a body down the street at 3 a.m. post Halloween. And of course, this I happened to park under this overpass where there's like a walkway that connected the bluffs above Pacific Coast Highway down to the beach. And some idiot jogger, I don't know how he saw this, but he's jogging along at 5 a.m. and he looks down and he sees this dead body in the back of my car,
Oh,
and he calls the
no.
police. So, you know, shortly thereafter, I'm awakened by this loud banging on my door, and these very stern police officers are there. I'm like in my pajamas. I open the door and I'm like, I know why you're here. It's the body in the car, right? I go, I can explain that. And they go, could you please come with us? And so we walked out onto Pacific Coast Highway, and it was like a scene out of Charles Addams, because I'm basically, my car door is jimmied open. The coroner's van is making a U-turn onto Pacific Coast Highway to pick up the body that's in my car. Okay. All my neighbors are lining the street, who all know had been in my house and so on, and all knew they're all laughing as I'm being paraded to the car by the police to
Oh
this
no.
potential murder scene. And then because the body was in methyl cellulose, was covered in methyl cellulose because it was supposed to be blood, but it dried and it became sticky, and my seats were like velour. So I had it in a plastic bag so it wouldn't spread. And the heat of the morning sun had caused the methyl cellulose to reactivate. And so there was like little droplets of blood inside the bag. And the police officer goes, he opens, he literally makes me look in the car, and he goes, "What have you got to say for yourself?" And I didn't completely answer his question, but I said, all I can say is it never looked better. And
That's too funny.
they were really upset.
Oh.
I fulfilled a lifelong ambition. Talk about peaking early.
I guess,
Made
yeah.
the Weekly World News and a bunch of other tabloids. The Globe, I think, if anyone remembers that. I think I'm in National Enquirer as well. And it was just like, and it was like, one of them was like, fun-loving Ron Magid left this body in his car and thought, whatever. So I'm sure all of us monster kids there's probably a lot of people who have stories like this post Halloween.
Yep.
But anyway, that was one of the crazier adventures. We've got a lot of them.
I'm sure. Well, I'd love to hear them sometime if you ever like to share.
Sure thing.
That's too funny. Oh man. So, and then I know you'd kind of mentioned the process of like making some of the masks. Is there any like stories that kind of stand out to you as far as
Well,
that whole process?
the the Mr. Hyde mask was just such a unique project because we had no track record, and I had just graduated from college, so I had no money, uh, and and so the idea came to me, and probably it may have been Dante's idea for all I can't remember, but anyway, we thought it's going to cost a certain amount of money to make this mask, and I somehow corralled Joe Reeder of House of Horror Studios into he wanted to do it. He at this point he hadn't started working for Stan Winston or anything. I think he was looking for a portfolio piece, something that he could really, say, this is my best work. And he agreed to do this basically on a delayed commission basis. So we figured out we were going to make 10 masks because we didn't want to get arrested or have the studios come down on us. And we decided also that they were going to be exactly the cost of what it would cost to make the mask. So we weren't making any profit. Mm-hmm. That was kind of our mantra all the way through. We weren't in the business of mask making. We were just in the hobby of mask making. And so basically they got offered to people, for what our cost was. And Dante, so we didn't have a mask. I had a life cast of Frederick March that I could show and said, we're going to use this in the creation of the mask. And then Dante did this amazing drawing on what we called the Custom Collector's Edition Heralds and of Mr. Hyde. And we sent those out to our 20 or 30 members at the time. And that mask sold out sight unseen.
That is crazy.
Almost instantaneously. And then, and all Joe had to do then was make it. And he went crazy doing it because, first of all, I had to work with me, and I can't sculpt or draw or anything. But if you show me a picture and you show me a mask, I can tell you what's missing. And unfortunately, one time when Henry Alvarez was sculpting the Halloween Society False Maria mask from Metropolis, the Robotrix, I said, you need to move this over just a little bit. And he goes, I hope I can swear on this thing. Who the fuck do you think you are, Rob Bottin? Because, of course, Henry was Rob Bottin's right-hand man. But anyway, so I'm sure Joe Reeder was thinking the same thing, but he was too polite to say it. But to his credit, in every picture of Mr. Hyde, the nose appeared to be different. And of course, we knew it had to be the same because that was the first time they really used some rubber prosthetics and stuff like that. And so Joe just kept working the nose. And I finally said, I don't know if you can, I just don't know if you're ever going to crack it, and people are waiting for this mask and they paid for it, but they haven't got it. And so, and I was like, I think maybe we should just mold it. He's like, no, I know I can crack it. And then one day he called me up and he goes, I cracked the nose. And it came over, and damn if he didn't figure out how to make it look the same from every angle that you could possibly see it from in the movie. And it's just, to me, just such a masterpiece. And Joe is such a gentleman. We just got to interview him for the documentary, so he'll tell this story even better than I can. But again, it's just looking back on this stuff, when you're doing it, you don't think it's any big deal, and then you look back on it, and it's still no big deal, but it is a big deal to other people. And that's what's been really gratifying is, the reception, that the fact that people still recognize the Halloween Society was something after all these years. And, when there's so much better material on you got Mike Hill making brilliant heads, and, Trick or Treat Studios is doing some amazing stuff. And, all the Don Posts and everything. I mean, there's so many, just so many talented mask makers out there. And so, our stuff was great for the time, but, it's definitely showing its age now, I think. and uh, but it's just kind of neat when people come up and go, "Hey, I really like the Halloween Society stuff," and you know, uh, it does make you feel kind of warm and fuzzy inside.
Yeah, no, I'm sure it does. That's such a cool and unique feeling that when your work is appreciated. That's so cool. But I know I did a search the other night for some Halloween Society masks, but I'm like, I don't think I'm going to be finding them. I think everybody that has one is holding on to them. So, but
Yeah, somebody just wrote me recently and was like, "Do you want to sell your Mr. Hyde?" And I'm like, "No, ask my son when that's kind of I look at that as like the legacy collection. So it's like,
yeah,
I don't think I'm gonna sell any of this stuff.
sorry, you have to wait for his kids. By then they won't mean as much. If they're still not, if they haven't turned to, as Forey would say, mummy dust by that time.
mummy dust. That's too funny. Do you have any favorite memories or anything from your time hanging out with him?
Oh man. Well, Dante and I would go to Forey's almost every weekend, and one of our main jobs was to clean up the room where he kept all those fabulous treasures, because during the week he would let people come in and play with this stuff, and we literally have to put it back on the shelf. In some cases, we had to take it and repair it. And so that was kind of our main job. But he called us the rat. He called what we were the we were the Brat Pack, I think, before there was, or was it? I think that's what we were called. I can't remember now. But anyway, we were the Bat Pack.
The Bat
My
Pack.
bad.
Okay.
The Bat Pack after the Rat Pack.
That's too funny.
And so it was like me and Dante and a few other guys that would come around with us, not quite as often, but fairly frequently. And then we'd hang out, with Kirk Hammett would show up in his just early Metallica days, like maybe he had just started working with them, so it's just crazy memories of all these people back when we were all fetuses, basically.
Well, I'm sure you have so many special memories, like growing up in the that area too. I mean, the amount of people that I'm sure that you've met along the way is just. I'm sure you have plenty of stories to share. So that's so
Well,
cool.
I'll just tell you, it's one of the great. I never set out to be a journalist. I mean, the Halloween Society was a labor of love. Forey, um, you know, when Forey told me that he was doing Monsterland magazine,
Mm.
I very chutzpah-like went up to him and said, Forey, it might be a really good idea if there was since it's called Monsterland magazine, if there was a column for people that created monster masks and stuff like that. And he goes, "That's a great idea. You're hired," basically. I had no previous experience other than doing the Halloween Society magazines. And so suddenly I had a column in a national magazine. It was the weirdest thing.
That's
And
so
so my whole
crazy.
life has been like, so in so many ways, and the advice I give my son always is, follow what interests you, because you just don't know where that's going to lead. I mean, my interest in monster masks led to doing the Halloween Society, which led to this entire career that I thought was going to be a footnote to my real career as a screenwriter and a playwright, but turned out to be, the main source of my income and honestly, some of the main source of my joy over the years, because
Yeah.
I got to meet all my heroes, um, and uh, and that's an extraordinary thing. And I was there from the transition from like practical effects to CG, and so it was a fascinating time, and it's kind of echoed now in the transition that we're going through with AI. And I keep telling people, everyone thought that CG was going to replace them, and it didn't. And I don't know that AI is going to replace anybody either. I think it's going to be more like, it's going to be, how how practical effects got so much better with CG when you could remove the wires and stuff like that. and so things that used to look like they were floating on a wire now don't
Mhm.
in later films. So
Yeah.
that's I expect there to be that kind of evolution with AI. And so I'm trying to encourage my son to use it in certain limited aspects.
Yeah,
and maybe he will, and maybe he won't.
I really am committed to not using AI. I mean that is something that I'm very adamant about. I want to make that very clear. There will be no AI used in the documentary or any Shadows Productions. So I just sort of want to put that out there. And it's like, yeah, I get, I'm open to learning about it. It's like, but I don't want to implement it in a way that, where I would much rather. I know so many talented people and so many talented artists, and I would just much rather bring them on board and have them do work that if it takes longer for them to do it or to work into their schedule, so be it. It's better than using AI. So
Yeah. No, I totally get that. I totally get that.
And I'm very supportive of that,
Yeah,
although I
that's
think
good.
he's being a little backward.
That's too funny. That's too funny. But yeah, no, that makes sense. I totally understand that. See what else here. Man, we've covered so much. I didn't think we were gonna get to everything. I'm like,
That's awesome, man.
yeah, we've covered way more than I thought we were gonna be able to. So yeah, thanks for going over everything.
yeah,
I think one of the other things I wanted to mention is, do you think the Halloween Society, is it something that you think it'll ever come back as far as like magazines or something digital or?
That's the plan. I'm working with a fellow named Den Schumann, who may have been the guy who reached out to you in the first place. And we have plans to do some sort of a magazine or a newsletter or something. I'm really old school, in case you can't tell. So, except for the fact that I'm endorsing AI, I want to do physical magazines and stuff as opposed to something that would just be digital. So, we're kind of debating how to best do that. Meanwhile, um, you know, even though the Halloween Society ended, like in 1989, I've been making, uh, uh, should say, I've been commissioning masks and heads ever since, because one of my passions is collecting vintage movie costumes. So I have a number of pieces that were worn by Lugosi and Karloff and Lionel Atwill and George Zuko and all the you know, car, uh, you know, I'm still missing a Dwight Fry if anybody has one. Uh, but anyway, and so uh, you know, so when you have the costume hanging in your closet, it's just a bunch of clothes. So we put together figures and so on, and I'll try and send you a couple pictures so you can show people. But
Yeah, I'd love that.
you know, one of my main collaborators is a fellow you may know named Rubber Larry, and his work is just phenomenal. I met him, I don't know what, 30 years ago through Rich Carell, and he's just been, just an awesome person to work with, and so creative and so talented. Um, and so, we've done, uh, you know, every kind of crazy head you can imagine. And so some of those may eventually be released as Halloween Society editions, but the problem is now the cost of everything has come, just the trouble of making a mask. If you want to make 10 masks, it's almost not worth the effort because it's so time intensive.
Hmm.
And none of us have that kind of time.
Right. Yeah. I still don't understand how like Death Studios and stuff they put out some of their masks because the price that they have them at. I think people don't realize how affordable that those masks are compared to like some of the masks that are out there. It's like you even on like mask makers, independent mask makers. It's like masks can range from like $200 to $400 anymore. It's crazy. So
Yeah, and I
but
don't even know if we could do ours for that.
yeah.
It really, be interesting if people have an opinion about that sort of thing and what they'd like to see. There's chances are good that we've made something along those lines at one point or other. Um, but anyway, I've always kept my hand in.
Okay.
in spite of the fact that I haven't been doing the magazines and so on. It's all, and so for me, the Halloween Society has never gone away. It's just, but it did recede as my professional writing career, took off, and Monsterland went out of business basically, and
Yeah.
so, uh, so, but it lived on in the interviews I was doing with people like Rick Baker and Stan Winston and Rob Bottin and so on.
Yeah.
And just um, and some of those stories are in the book because there are a lot of crazy stories that didn't necessarily fit in the articles I was writing for American Cinematographer, Premiere Magazine, or the LA Times, but that make for some good sidelights along the way.
Awesome.
I hope people
Awesome.
pick up the books and take a look.
So yeah, so where's the best places right now to get the books if somebody were wanting to order them or purchase them?
Basically, they're available through Amazon.com, through BarnesandNoble.com. There's the publisher Bear Manor has a website, but I don't know how much longer they're going to be producing the books themselves.
Okay.
And there's one or two others. I'm sure you can find them online, but Amazon and Barnes and Noble are probably your best bets.
Okay.
And then wherever fine books are sold, which these days is not many places.
Yeah, exactly. So for anybody listening, I guess what's the difference between the two, or is there a specific one that they should start with, or I guess what's kind of the difference?
Are you talking about the 2 volumes of the book?
Yeah.
It's kind of like Kill Bill.
Yeah, exactly.
There you go.
That's the only resemblance to Kill Bill. I have too much.
You wrote it as one book, and then
it's true. I wrote it as one book, and then they couldn't print the book at the length and have the magazines in them. So it's basically, the book is told consecutively. So you want to read volume 1 before you read volume 2.
Okay.
And if you don't, toss volume 1 out the window before you're done with it, then you might want to go on to volume 2 because it's just more of the same. But the structure of the book is basically, each chapter is an issue of the magazine. So it's like what was going on while we were doing the magazine, and in our private lives, our personal, our Halloween Society lives, and then other crazy stuff that didn't make it into the pages of the magazine, and then commenting on certain things that did make it into the pages of the magazine. And there's a little bit of Now It Can Be Told.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So is there plans for another book eventually, or is it kind of the documentary? And
for now, it's the documentary.
Yeah.
I don't, if it turns out that there's a need for a third book, if we should be so lucky as to have the chance to do more Halloween Society publications and more Halloween Society masks and so on, I would never say never. But the next project I'm working on is a book about a sculptor named Jim Rumpf, who many people probably haven't heard of. You probably know because you've read the book. But he was a dear friend, and he's probably most famous for doing the Star Wars mugs that came out in 1977.
Okay.
He did Darth Vader, Chewbacca, and Obi-Wan Kenobi. And but he's just this amazing, incredible artist, and really influenced my life. So I'm going to spend some of my remaining years tracking down people who knew him and trying to tell his life story, because he was the first adult who treated me like an equal, and I met him when I was 12. Mm-hmm. So that's a big deal. Most people, I think, adults these days tend to treat kids like little adults, but back in the day, we were to be seen and not heard. Mm-hmm. And Jim was really interested in what made us tick, and so me and my friends, just had a place where there was someone quite a bit older than us who had, quite a different life experiences and so on, and had this tremendous talent. For mask collectors, his most famous piece is probably the Possession mask, mm-hmm. Which is a 2-headed mask with a huge demon face, and then a little tiny, human twin sticking out of the side of it.
Okay, very cool.
And I think we, there's definitely pictures of it in the book. I'll, but it's Jim only made a couple of those during his lifetime, and so, but that's one of the things that among Mask fans, he's most appreciated for.
Yeah.
But I want to bring to light a lot of other. He had so many plans, so many drawings and things that he wanted to do, um, all sorts of bizarre lamps and other masks and other creatures and so on. It's just amazing stuff.
Yeah.
So anyway, hopefully I'll get around to that.
Yeah, no, I hope so. I hope you can too. That sounds super special. Thanks for sharing that with me. So that's awesome. So, and then I guess the last thing I wanted to ask, like, if you did do a revival, is Dante kind of going to be involved, or do you still keep up with him?
Dante and I see each other mostly at Monsterpalooza.
Okay.
Like a lot of people, time has elapsed. Whenever I see him, it feels like no time has elapsed. But the last time we really probably hung out together was 30 years ago. And then we'll see each other in passing at these events and so on. I'm hoping to get him to participate in the documentary.
Oh, that'd be cool.
So people tell people to send their cards and letters to Dante Renta, and tell him to because I don't want to be the guy telling the story by myself. I really think Dante has a lot to add to it. And similarly, if I could get Guy Thorpe and David Lady on board.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I've asked Guy, not sure. I think he's a bit camera shy.
Uh-huh.
Haven't spoken to David Lady longer than it's been since I saw Dante. But again, I extend the invitation.
Yeah.
I'd love to have him involved, because really let me just say in closing that when Dante stopped working on the Halloween Society, we kind of disbanded after the first, 13 issues, which were really like 9 issues or 8 issues, because many of them were double issues because we couldn't do all the issues we wanted to do. Anyway, so Guy and David Lady came in and we did the Halloween Gazette. And Dante then rejoined about 4 issues into the Halloween Gazette. So Dante was back. And I think that's where part 2 of my memoir picks up, with the return of Dante Renta.
Okay.
But anyway, so Guy and David really picked up the chores that Dante, because I had no artistic talent. So David Lady would lay out the magazines and so on, and he would write. He did these incredible cartoons, which I'm sure fans of his are familiar with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it became a different animal.
Yeah.
But it was, but still recognizable, I think, because the focus was still on masks primarily. But anyway, couldn't have done it without them.
That's so cool. That's so cool that they stepped in and were willing to help you. Actually, I just talked to David not too long ago. I have a couple masks that I'm sending to him. He's gonna paint up for me. So.
Oh, how cool is that?
But yeah, him and Laura does a really good job on like hair work. So I'm really excited to send it to him.
Are you kidding? She was among the first people who haired a lot of our masks.
That's crazy.
And first Dante would do it, then Dante got tired of it. And then Laura would come in and do. My Halloween Society Wolfman mask is all haired by Laura, and it's
that's
incredible.
So cool.
And we did it with human hair, and she looks like singeing the edges of it with, like Jack Pierce did. Take matches to them and get that kind of bristly effect. Cool. It's just so much fun. And, I miss those guys. I really do. So I hope we can, have one last hurrah together.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Well, cool. Awesome. Thank you for sharing all that with me. I got lucky. I got these last couple stories. I feel like super honored to hear. Like, it's been awesome. So,
well, you've been asking some great questions, so you get some great answers.
Well, perfect. I'm glad my questions have been so good. I'm done with everything I was gonna ask, and this has just been all extra. So perfect. So
Awesome. Hopefully, people will have the energy to get through all this.
yeah, I will. I can't wait to listen to it again, listen to it over again. So, but yeah, I appreciate you guys coming on. Thank you so much. It's been such an honor, interviewing both of you. And Harrison, I wish you the best of luck on all your future films, and I'm looking forward to everything that's coming out, and it'll be good. So appreciate you guys.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for having us.
Awesome, guys.
Yeah,
Well, thank you, and I hope you guys both take care and stay well.
Thanks so much. Back at you, Tate.
Thanks, man.
Really look forward to seeing what you do with this mess.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Also, quickly plug maybe where to find.
Yeah, absolutely. We
Halloween stuff.
plug the socials for sure.
Well,
Yeah,
we can send you some stuff.
and yeah, we can say so. Yeah, we have for the updates on the Halloween Society. Our Instagram is the Halloween Society _ Unmasked. We also have a Facebook page.
Just called the Halloween Society.
Also, my personal Instagram that is kind of an umbrella for all projects is just Harry Magid, HarryMagid. And for updates on Four Shadows Productions, we are the Instagram ad is the number 4 Shadows Productions, and so yeah, you can find this should be where for all these projects that were mentioned here, should be where to find them. And my new short film Narcolept is coming out on Halloween.
Awesome.
So on YouTube,
on YouTube, and
make sure they know where to find it.
Definitely, and there will be links to that on my Instagram as well. So
awesome, that's exciting. That's exciting. Well, I'm looking forward to watching it.
No, thank you.
Yeah, and
we're finally being done with this thing and putting it out.
Yeah, that'll be so cool. I'm sure that'll be such
a my life, and
yeah, exactly.
On to other things like.
Awesome. Well, anybody listening, our podcast is available on Spotify, and it'll be on YouTube. This will be our first actual YouTube episode. You guys will be.
Oh wow!
So it's a big deal. So you guys are like our first official guest. So, but awesome. Yeah, well,
we won't crash the network.
Yeah, exactly. But well, thank you again, and I appreciate it. And yeah, awesome.